Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Gaming Lounge Podcast, episode 18. Once again, I'm your host, Sebastian, and I'm joined by Dory. How's everything going, Dory?
Hey, everything's going pretty well. We'll talk a little bit about Dungeons of Hinterberg, plus some interesting news pieces today. Also, what we've been playing.
Yeah, this is a dry week for news and for game releases. I mean, there was like 5 games last week, so there was really nothing else left for July, pretty much.
Right.
But there is plenty of news, just not anything major, just small things. So we're going to start with the news about Capcom. So Capcom pretty much confirmed that they have Mega Man as a highly valued IP. According to IGN.com, I'm going to read off it. A shareholder asked Capcom what its plans were for the Mega Man series, and Capcom replied by saying, Mega Man is one of our highly valued IPs, and we are considering how to create games for it on an ongoing basis. This is good news for Mega Man fans because they don't get rewarded that often. They beg Capcom to focus on the series, and they don't usually give them what they want. If you didn't know, Mega Man came out in Nintendo in 1987, and it's had over 50 entries since then, and it's sold over 41 million copies as of October 2023. And the last mainline one was Mega Man 11, and that was in 2018. So it's been 6 years since a mainline Mega Man series. So Mega Man is a classic IP for Capcom, yet they usually don't make Mega Man games for their fans. Personally, for me, I'm not a Mega Man fan, really. That's one of the few franchises I have not really played like other people have. People really, really love Mega Man. And for whatever reason, Monster Hunter and Mega Man just never clicked with me. So I'm just not a big Metroidvania, side-scrolling 2D platformer fan generally. There's some games, of course, I love, but overall, it's not usually my kind of genre. What about you, Dory?
Yeah, I have a very brief history with Mega Man. I played it as a kid on the Game Boy, I want to say, maybe Game Boy Advance. It was definitely a handheld system, and it was definitely Nintendo. I had a hell of a time playing those games when I was younger. I would always get really upset at them because they were really hard, and I didn't understand why they were so hard because, I was young and I didn't get that some games were just designed that way. But yeah, very frustrating for me as a kid, for Kid Dory. The only other experience I have with Mega Man is that sick ass cartoon series they had for Kids WB, the Battle Network show, where they would like plug in and like the internet was all mysterious and stuff and still uses like a plot device. So that's how old that show is. But yeah, that show ruled. I loved it when I was a kid, and that was really. Oh no, I did watch the classic Mega Man show, also from the 90s. Especially love that clip when I think it's Cutter Man or something tries to like take Mega Man's powers and he just punches him or something like that. I can't remember exactly. It's a great YouTube clip though. Yeah, I don't have a ton of experience with Mega Man. I didn't grow up with the franchise. I played it a little bit as a kid, decided that it wasn't my thing, and then I just never came back to it. So similar to Seb, I'm not a huge Mega Man fan. It doesn't really affect me that they are or are not. But I agree with you. It's a bummer. I mean, 6 years is a long time for any franchise, let alone something like Mega Man, where you can just easily put like a short little game, and it doesn't have to be like incredibly technically impressive, right? I know there have been some 3D Mega Man games, but we, all know that the ones people most like are the X games, the 2D games, the platformers, the ones that are really hard as nails. So I don't really see what the hang up is. I just think this feels like a good comedy skit where Capcom could say like, well, we really value Mega Man actually. And then someone in the back would go like, since when? But yeah, it doesn't really affect me, but it is a bummer for Mega Man fans. But I mean, this is good news. I mean, hopefully they make something. I thought it was cool that they did the Battle Network collection, remaster collection, or whatever. Again, I'm not going to get it because this series is not really for me. Mega Man's usually pretty tough. I know some are probably more accessible than others, but it has a reputation anyway of being a pretty tough platformer with boss fights. And that's just not really my thing. But definitely respect the franchise and grew up with some fondness for it. So I hope Mega Man fans get something good soon that isn't just a remastered collection.
Yeah, I love a lot of genres, but there's certain games like The Messenger or Shovel Knight or Super Meat Boy where people absolutely love, and it just doesn't click with me personally. Just not a
Right.
fan of that kind of really hard platforming kind of gameplay. But I grew up with Mega Man on the Super Nintendo and the Game Boy Advance, but mainly I didn't play a lot of them, but I did play a handful of them. But I wouldn't consider myself a Mega Man fan anyway. So, but yeah, so but even though it doesn't appeal to me, I do hope for the fans that they get a new game at some point. I hope Capcom lives up to their promise that it's a major, highly valued IP to them, because it's been feed the fans. They've been waiting a long time now.
Yes, for
All
sure.
right, so let's move on to the Humble Games news. So originally, Humble Games was reported to be closed down with a 36-person staff being laid off entirely. And their publishing offshoot of the popular platform was cut, and seemingly without any prior warning. So there was like absolutely no warning. Even they caught the staff off guard completely. I saw that on Twitter. The staff didn't see that coming. And as of the time of writing, Humble itself has yet to comment on the matter. That's what IGN said. But IGN did give us an update on the 23rd, which was a few days ago. They said, in a statement provided to game developer, Humble said its game publishing label is undergoing restructuring rather than fully shutting down. This restructure involved much deliberation and careful thought with the goal of ensuring the stability and support of our developers and ongoing projects. We are acutely aware of the profound impact this decision has on our team members at Humble Games and deeply empathize with everyone affected. Our team's contributions have been world-class and invaluable, supporting the launch of our games since we started publishing in 2017. And then, end of quote. And then IGN says, ongoing and future projects are said to be unaffected, and the restructure has, quote, no impact on Humble Bundle's operations. It affirmed that it was committed to making this transition as smooth as possible for everyone involved. So
to quote the wrestling legend AJ Styles, Cap, that's Cap, and that means fake. That like the idea that they have some kind of empathy for the people that they just laid off when they gave them no warning at all, like that drives me crazy about it. Is like if you are wanting to quit your job, right? It's well regarded, and I agree with this idea, by the way. I'm not saying you shouldn't, unless your boss is like terrible or whatever, or company's terrible. But like, you should give a 2-week notice, right? It's just nice. It lets them be able to replace you. It makes things not interrupt things badly, right? Really important in certain sectors, right? Yada, yada, yada. But employers can just do this to you in a lot of places, right? It's not universal, of course. There are some places where you have really good protections, especially through unions, which we'll talk about soon. But it just bothers the hell out of me that just companies can just boot you with no prior warning, right? And just completely upend your life, right? Some people move or buy houses or get like new apartments or make big purchases just because they've got a really good job, right? I don't know if Humble pays their employees well. I don't know a lot. I know about the Humble bundles. Those are really great, and they go towards great causes. So in that way, I've liked Humble Games. There's been some controversies in the past with them not giving the full percentage of your donations, but I think they backtracked on that, and things have been better PR-wise since then. But yeah, it's just silly to say that our team is awesome and we deeply empathize with them. It's like, if you deeply empathize with them, maybe you shouldn't have, laid them off the first chance you could get just to cut costs. Yeah, I don't know. This just sounds like a lot of corporate speak of undergoing restructuring. Deliberation and careful thought sounds like such bullshit when the people involved in your deliberate and careful thought did not even know that they were going to get laid off. So yeah, this kind of stuff pisses me off. And to be clear, I have really no reason to dislike Humble Games. I bought the Humble bundles before, and I've gotten really good deals from it and supported really good authors, developers, whatever. I don't do it a lot, but I've certainly done it a few times. So yeah, this is disappointing.
Yeah, I agree. I co-sign everything Dory just said. Like, I pretty much agree 100%. Like, I hate that they gave zero warning to the staff. Like, that's absolutely ridiculous. That's
Yep.
unacceptable in my opinion. And I feel bad for everybody, and I hope everybody lands on their feet. And that's really all I have to say about that. But yeah, it's a real shame. I really hate to see that.
Yeah. I will say it's good at least that they've affirmed that there's not going to be any big sort of hindrance to future and current projects, and that the Humble bundles are going to keep going. I guess Humble Games is like a portion of the of the studio involved here. I didn't even know they were owned by IGN. But so that makes the article kind of weird, right? Because it's kind of like
Reporting
their owner,
themselves.
right? Yeah, they're writing about themselves, right? That's kind of weird. I just put that together. But yeah, so that I don't know, that feels weird too, kind of gross, because it feels like it should be an outside person reporting on it, like, you know, like Jason Schreier, doesn't have to be him, but somebody like him, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so all of this just feels weird to me at this point. But I am glad the Humble Bundle operations are going to keep going. That's a great program. I hope it keeps going. You can get really good deals there, and it goes to really good causes. And as far as I know, they've backpedaled on the way your donations are spent. So they do, like, a lot of it does really go to where it's supposed to go, which is great. So it's not all bad, but a lot of this is pretty bad, from the way that they handled it to the way that they're talking about it. You know, they're saying the things that they should do, but they're not actually backing that up with the actions beforehand, right?
Yeah.
They're saying that they have great empathy, but they're not actually enacting great empathy, right? So yeah, corporations and empathy don't often go together in my book.
Agreed. And just to be clear, I got my information from GameDeveloper.com. All
Oh
right.
yeah, that's true.
Some good news in contrast to that one. Blizzard's World of Warcraft development team has voted to unionize. So I'm getting my information from TheVerge.com. More than 500 developers at Blizzard Entertainment who work on World of Warcraft have voted to form a union. The World of Warcraft Game Makers Guild, formed with the assistance of the Communication Workers of America, CWA, is composed of employees across every department, including designers, engineers, artists, producers, and more. Together, they have formed the largest wall-to-wall union, or a union inclusive of multiple departments and disciplines, at Microsoft. This news comes less than a week after the formation of the Bethesda Game Studios Union, which at the time of the announcement was itself the largest wall-to-wall Microsoft union. In a statement emailed to The Verge, Microsoft spokesperson Delaney Simmons wrote, "We continue to support our employees' right to choose how they are represented in the workplace, and we will engage in good faith negotiations with the CWA as we work towards a collective bargaining agreement. These unions represent a major shift in video game union organization strategy, and The Verge spoke to two members of Blizzard's organization committee about how this union came to be and the challenges of organizing such a large and comprehensive group." Catherine Friesen, a quest designer of the World of Warcraft team, spoke about how the impetus for the union came out of the desire to uphold one of Blizzard's company values: every voice matters. Quote, "You can tell just by talking to people how much they care about one another and the work that they do in the game." Friesen said, "I think that's where the unionization effort comes from, the desire to stand together to fight for collective bargaining rights at the table." Paul Cox, a senior quest designer and Blizzard veteran, agreed, saying that the company's response to the state of California's discrimination lawsuit spurred employee action. A lot of the early responses felt very corporate and didn't feel like they reflected the values that, as a company, we said we upheld, Cox said. As a result, employees at Blizzard took action with walkouts, which became the beginning of unionization efforts at the company. So, Dory, what are your thoughts from hearing
Yeah,
this?
so I shared the one about Bethesda last week, and I was like, wow, this is really cool. Like, it's good to see this. I remember back when, God, a union in video games was unthinkable, right? Even 5 years ago, I think, or six,
Uh,
like,
also, not to cut you off. Also, this week their voice actors, right, were
right. Yes, they've started unionizing against AI
they're going on
use.
strike, I think, right? Or
Right.
thinking about
Yeah.
it.
For better, they're at least going to the table for better protections against AI. Since a lot of some places are trying to use AI instead of actually hiring people,
which is awesome. I'm glad that they're
yeah,
fighting that. Yeah.
Yes. So a lot of unionization efforts this month, which is great. I was really happy to see that about Bethesda. I had the very funny image in my head of, Microsoft has been buying all these places up and down, up and down. Somehow every single one of their studios just starts slowly unionizing until like all of Microsoft itself becomes unionized. But it's really good. I mean, I can make like little jokes and stuff, but this is like unequivocally a good thing for game developers to have. They are underpaid, underappreciated, overworked. I could go on and on. It's brutal hours for a lot of people. It's not the fantasy that a lot of people have growing up of making video games and doing what you love and design. For some people it is. For some people, they're lucky enough to work in really good studios. It's the same thing in the anime industry, where a lot of those companies do not take care of their workers. They underpay them and overwork them, sometimes to death. It's a really brutal industry, anime wise and video game wise. A lot of industries have this problem, unfortunately. So that's why unions are so important, because you can negotiate for better benefits, right? This is, pretty basic stuff that I think most people would agree with. I will also say I love when corporations are like, well, of course, we support our employees doing whatever they want to, and as long as they come together in good faith with our negotiations. And that just screams to me like, as long as they want what we want, or at least as long as they as long as they like don't have radically different goals than us, right? Because they can't just say like, well, we support them, but up to a certain, they could say it, but we support them, but only up to here or here.
Yeah, that'd be bad PR.
Right, it'd be bad PR. So they're trying to hold fast to their values while at the same time saying, oh, of course, unions are great. Yeah. Even though like we never encourage our employees to unionize because, that would undermine our authority. So yeah, I think this is awesome. I think more companies should unionize, or just start unionize would be great. Unions help you get a lot of things that you're not going to get otherwise, especially if you have any kind of difficult work situations going on. It's just really helpful for you to still be getting money even while it's going on. Yeah, it's just a good thing, and I hope to see it spread more and more throughout all industries, really. It's something that's long overdue, and I hope it continues. But yeah, Seb, what's your thoughts?
It's especially important that that happened at Blizzard, considering all the news that happened in the last 5-6 years, and all the sexual harassment and all this news stories we heard about, and Activision. I'm glad like we said in the past that Microsoft purchasing Activision, has its flaws, but some good could come out of it, and this is some of the good to come out of it. Because I think Microsoft knows that Activision and Blizzard's like brand is kind of toxic right now, and this good PR makes it look like, I'm not saying like I'm not saying like they're only doing this like for ulterior motives, but I do think Microsoft is also like, this is kind of a toxic brand right now, so let's look good, help encourage our workers to unionize and feel good and everything, have a positive environment, because the brand is so toxic. Yeah, it's turned it around in a couple years, but at the time it was so bad, right? It was really bad, and I'm really happy to see this. I'm glad. I want to see more unions in the game industry, but they're really overworked. They're not paid very well. We all make it seem like everybody's Kojima, or like, making triple figures and living the life of luxury, but most of them are overworked. I'm not saying they work minimum wage, but they work very tough jobs, and yes. Some of them have a lot of crunch, and they can work 80 to 90 hours. They have a lot of overtime. They work a lot. I work really hard too, but they work like way overtime that I like beyond me. Like I don't even have that. Like I have more vacation time, and stuff.
I have a 40-hour work week, and I'm completely zonked every day, and I can't even imagine working 80, 90. I think I just would die. So yeah, props to them.
Yeah, I work like I work on like normally on the surface it's like 40 hours, but I work like 60 to 70 hours a week. But I get so much vacation time to balance it out. I get a lot of time to refresh and unwind. But a lot of people like here, like there's just so many stories where the people in the game industry have to like sleep over, like because they're working so hard and they have to stay at the
Yeah.
company, and it's really bad. So I'm
Yeah.
glad I'm always pro worker, so I'm glad I'm happy to see this. So that's how I feel about it. I think this is great news, and I kudos to Microsoft for encouraging it on the service anyway, right? It's just, and good for them for allowing it. Because I guess they could shut this down if they really wanted to, but like I said, I think for PR wise, it's good, right? It's good for Microsoft, it's good for Activision, it's good for the workers. So it seems like it's good news for everybody. It's a good strategy
For sure.
for everybody. All right.
Yeah, I will say last thing, you know,
Yeah.
you can look at some of the you know, wages that they make and think, wow, they make a lot of money. But consider a lot of the areas that game development often has occurred in, right? Especially Silicon Valley, big tech hubs, California, like areas that are very, very pricey. New York, right? A lot of game companies are going to go to places that are really industrial or big or urbanized, developed, and all that stuff. And so that means that their wages don't go as far as maybe you would think they would. I'm sure some of them are decently paid, but for the area that they're in,
Sure.
at least in some cases, it just doesn't go as far.
Yeah.
And so that's something to consider too.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Because
But anyway, yeah.
Because I live in South Florida, and if I wanted to be a game developer, I would have to move to like Seattle, New York, or California. And 75,000, 80,000 a year in California is totally different than 80,000 in Florida. If I made 80,000 in Florida, I would be pretty comfortable. Well, Florida's pretty expensive now too, but like let's just say like if I lived in like Missouri, right, and I made like 90,000 a year or 100,000 a year, I'd be very, very, very comfortable. I'd have a nice house and everything. 90,000 in like California or New York is totally different, right? Like you have apartments that are like $2,500 to $30,000. Obviously, $2,500 to $3,000 a month. So that's ridiculous. So that's just how it is. So my point is it's not, things are not apples and oranges comparisons, right? Like there's layers to it. So overall, I'm happy to hear this, and I hope that happens more in the industry as we move along, especially with all these layoffs. I mean, this has been like I don't know if it's historic, all these layoffs, but it
feels like it's historic. I mean, we've I don't know the statistics anymore, but I know at one point we were only like a few months into the year when we'd already reached more layoffs than the previous year, which had, I think, over 1,000 people laid off. So it's really bad. I mean, if there's been another time, I mean, maybe it was the mid 2000s, right, during the recession in America, but that's also very Americanized view of the gaming industry. Obviously, there are big studios in other countries, even in the mid 2000s, but I don't know. I struggle to think of another time.
It's hard to say because obviously a lot of people got fired because during COVID they overhired people and they had to like cut budgets, and games are getting overly bloated. We talked about this on this podcast before, but the budgets are absurd and they're not paying their staff very well, and they cut a lot of people, and it's been a mess. I don't remember a time where it's been this reported this much, so I don't know. So it could be historic, but either way, it's bad. So it's rough. It's not an industry I would ever want to get into. Like being a teacher, even though like my pay is not fantastic, especially in Florida, but I have I have nice retirement, healthcare, dental. It's really hard to fire a teacher. And then if I did get fired somehow, I can get hired somewhere else. Like I could never imagine having a job where I'm in fear of losing my job at any second. I don't think I could ever get into corporate world, unless I was like some stockbroker that was making like millions of dollars or whatever. I don't think I could ever get into that kind of world because I couldn't. It's just too risky, right? Like you lose your whole livelihood in one overnight.
Yep.
So that's just scary to me. So, all right, next topic. So PSVR 2 is coming to Steam, as we Sony said this a couple months ago, but now we officially have support on Steam from Sony themselves for the PSVR 2. So I'm gonna be quoting. I'm gonna be reading off IGN. Less than 2 weeks from now, so the article is this week. PSVR 2 is getting a new lease on life. The second generation PSVR 2 is coming to Steam Like, so we're gonna be able to play games like Half-Life Alyx using the PSVR 2, which insanely makes me insanely hyped and excited. Like, Half-Life Alyx was best VR game of all time. PSVR 2 is a fantastic device. Obviously, it's lacking support from Sony, and it seems like Sony kind of letting it die. But this is really going to bring this hardware back. Like, I mean, obviously VR is still going to be niche, but it's going to really make it popular. Like, VR is biggest on PC than anywhere else. Like, PC gamers are going to have a field day with this. And the specs, as I've talked about, is on PSVR 2 is fantastic. So this is very, very exciting. All right. So ahead of the release, Sony has dropped a new app on the Steam, and it gives us more insight of the compatibility on Steam. According to the Steam listing, users must use the PSVR 2 app for the initial setup to play Steam VR games on PSVR 2. The app will also be used to update the firmware for the PSVR 2 hardware and allow users to adjust settings such as screen brightness and establish a play area for the device via the Steam VR dashboard. Obviously, that's very needed when you play VR. Your area, because you need to have space around you. I think it's like at least 6 feet. The Steam listing also shares the system requirements to run Steam VR games on the PSVR 2. To get the best performance, the company recommends that your PC gaming rig be equipped with NVIDIA GeForce RTX 360, AMD Radeon RX 6600 XT, or newer GPU such as the RTX 40 series. Personally, I have a 4080 on my desktop, and my laptop is a 4070, so I should be fine. I'm gonna be fine with that. I mean, PS5 can run PSVR VR 2, so I couldn't imagine it being insanely high as a requirement. As it is implied, the Sense controllers will be compatible with Steam VR games, such as Steam listing confirms. However, as Sony revealed last month when it announced the required $60 PC adapter needed to run PSVR 2 on a PC, using the head-mounted display on a PC would limit several key features available on the PSVR 2, such as eye tracking, adaptive triggers, and headset feedback. However, 110-degree field of view, finger touch detection, and 4K resolution will be accessible. So I'm happy the controllers are accessible, but it's lacking features. But I guess it's not the end of the world for me. The app will be released on August 6th, a day that's next week, I think. We're close to it. The app will be released on August 6th, a day before the PC adapter is officially released. The device aims to expand the versatility of the $550 gaming headset, such as Sony tries to expand the PSVR's 2 gaming library beyond locking it to the PS5 gaming hardware ecosystem. Obviously, one of the biggest complaints about the PSVR 2 is that you had to buy a $500 PS5, and then you had to buy the $700 headset. So it was a $1,200 investment. Now, a lot of people already had a PS5, so it wasn't an issue for the people that are into that. But obviously, if you're you want to get into that, you don't have a PS5 yet, you wanted a VR 2, you had to invest both the hardware, both the console and the headset. So now you just have to buy an adapter for your PC if you have the required specs. So that's good news, because PSVR 2 is not selling very well from what we gathered, and this is going to expand it to a new audience. All right. And as you know, as I said, it dropped in price. When I got it, it was like $700 something, and then plus tax, so it was like $750 or whatever. Now it's $550, which is at the time I already said $700 was a great price for it. I mean, obviously it's expensive hardware, but like for the specs and everything, you were really getting a good hardware for that money. Like, they were losing money on that. It's like, because you could argue that was like $1,000, $1,100 level of hardware, but obviously that's really hard sell for people to buy $1,100 hardware like headset. So, because VR is already niche. All right, Dory. Obviously you don't play VR. I don't think you have any interest in VR.
Nope. I can't say this really moves me one way or the other, but I am always in favor of things being more accessible to more people. So just on that basic foundation alone, I think this is a great thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, VR doesn't really do it for me. I'd probably have to wear contacts or some kind of VR set that works with my glasses, which I'm sure they've probably made at this point.
I think it fits your glasses.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I've tried a couple of VRs and they don't work with my glasses. So that's always annoying.
You can adjust. You can adjust the headpiece to fit your glasses, I think. So.
Okay. But yeah, VR is not really a thing that's ever done it for me. I just don't personally. I don't see the appeal. The closest I've ever gotten to be interested in playing is when Half-Life Alyx came out, but that's just because I thought that was a cool ass looking game and I really wanted to play it. But yeah, this is great. More PlayStation stuff on Steam is kind of my takeaway from this. What I think is interesting, more collaboration between PlayStation and PC. So yeah, I mean that just feels like it's slowly happening more and more and more, and now it's coming to VR as well.
Yeah, so it's really exciting. The adapter is $60, but I think that's worth it for the for all the good games you can buy now. It's really exciting news. Have you ever used VR though? Like, have you ever tried it or?
I tried it before, but in a very commercial context. Like, I think the last time I can remember was like something Star Wars that was very VR, and it was at like a Dave and Buster's. So that's like one of the very commercial models, not
really,
like one of the.
That's not the same. Yeah.
Okay.
VR is absolutely incredible. It really is. I mean, I understand it's hard to like demonstrate to people because you have to try it, and it'd be nice if a store had it or whatever. But I obviously it's really hard to do that because people get pink eye and things I would not put on a headset in Best Buy. But it really is a fantastic experience. Like, it's really hard to explain. Like, you really feel like you're in the world. Like. For a random example, like if you play Skyrim in VR, like you really feel like you're in the world. Like, your brain really tricks you. Like even the smell and the feel and like the wind, like even though it's not really happening to you, your brain just feels like you're actually experiencing it. Like, it tricks your mind. And it's really incredible. I've always been blown away by VR. I really love VR. I'm not like an enthusiast where I play nothing but VR. I play it very little. I play like the big ones here and there, but there is times where I really enjoy it. I love music games, like any of those games where you just hitting blocks or dancing or whatever. Like, those are really fun in VR. I would definitely recommend in those games. So, I hope VR is here to stay, but it definitely they need more work to appeal to a broader audience. All right, so exciting news, and let's move on to our last news topic of the night, which is a possible remaster of the Legacy of Kain series. So, according to Polygon, two beloved Soul Reaver games from developer Crystal Dynamics may be getting the remastered treatment, according to what appears to be a leak out of San Diego Comic-Con, which is going on right now. Branding for Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver 1 and 2 Remastered, unannounced project has been spotted at comics publisher Dark Horse's booth at Comic-Con 2024, strongly hinting at a revival of the long-dormant franchise. That's an understatement. If accurate, the project sounds like it will contain remastered versions of the 1999 game Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver, released for the original PlayStation and later ported to the Dreamcast and PC, and the sequel, Soul Reaver 2, which released for the PS2 and PC in 2001. So it's been 23 years since this franchise came out. Since the sequel came out. Both games started vampire turned Wraith Raziel as the playable character. Raziel, how do you say his name?
Raziel? Raziel? I thought it was Raziel, but I don't fucking know.
It might be Raziel. It's been a long time since I played this. Yeah. As the playable character in his quest to exact revenge on his master Kain, star of the first game in the franchise, Legacy of Kain.
Right, legendary brother to Undertaker, right?
So the Raziel. Anyway, he's the blue guy. He looks like in the second game. He's like, I think he's probably more popular, more well known than the first guy. Like, people because the box cover is, I don't want to say iconic, but people know it when they see it. I guess it is iconic. All right, Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver, and Soul Reaver 2 were developed by Tomb Raider studio Crystal Dynamics, and both were directed by Amy Hennig, who later went on to work at Naughty Dog, EA, and Skydance Interactive. So this is from Amy Hennig. So we've talked about her plenty of times in the past. We both like her, of course. A remaster of the Soul Reaver games is certainly in line with Crystal Dynamics owner Embracer Group's plans. In 2022, after acquiring Eidos, Crystal Dynamics, and the team at Square Enix Montreal, and associated IPs Tomb Raider, Deus Ex, Legacy of Kain, and Thief, Embracer said in an earnings report that it saw, quote, great potential not only in sequels, but also in remakes, remasters, spin-offs, as well as transmedia projects based on those franchises. Part of that plan was realized earlier this year when Crystal Dynamics and Ace Asper released Tomb Raiders 1 to 3 remaster. I still haven't played that yet. A lavish overhaul of the first 3 games starring Lara Croft. The quality of that product would seem to be good omen for fans of the Soul Reaver games and Deus Ex and Thief, but we'll have to wait to see what Crystal Dynamics and friends have in store when and if Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver 1 and 2 remastered are officially revealed. So I think this is true. I think we will get this. If you, I know you haven't played the Tomb Raider Remastered Collection, but from what I've seen, it looked pretty good. Like I mean, they kept it true to the originals. It's gonna feel dated, and I think this series is gonna feel dated too. I mean, it's been a long time since this came out, and it has old school 3D platforming kind of combat action adventure. So it's gonna feel dated. It's kind of, I don't know if it's going to be hard to recommend to somebody that hasn't played the series before. Obviously, I have nostalgia for that genre and that style of gameplay because I grew up in the 90s and early 2000s, of course. Dory, how do you feel about this?
Yeah, I have a friend who is really into this, and so I know some stuff about it, but I can't say I'm anywhere close to being any kind of expert. I am aware of the series and kind of looked at it with interest. I've seen some cutscenes online and I've seen some videos that mention it in passing. But yeah, I've never played it myself. The way that Seb described it to me, he compared it to, I think, Darksiders. But I haven't played Darksiders either, although I do have it on Steam. So yeah, kind of old school third person hack and slash with some platforming elements. It definitely struck me as very nerdy, in a good way, obviously, and very kind of I don't know, very in its own world in terms of world building. But yeah, I don't know. I don't really know a lot about these games. I know about them and I know of them and yada yada, but I don't have too much to say here. I kind of wish I did, but I didn't grow up playing these. I wasn't a big PC gamer as a kid.
Well, they were on PlayStation.
They were on PlayStation. I see. I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought they were only on PC. But yeah, I think Seb's excited about it. I will wait for reviews if they're decent.
Yeah.
I'll check them out. I'm not sure if I'd enjoy it, but I at least would want to give it a chance.
Yeah. Just to be clear, the first game was on PlayStation and then later to the Dreamcast and PC, and then Soul Reaver 2, the sequel, was on PS2 and PC. So it was on console.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't have a Dreamcast, and I did have a PlayStation. I had a PlayStation 2, so I'm surprised I never really heard about it when I was a kid. But yeah, I never knew about it.
Yeah, I think of the PC version, probably because my dad though, but I think a lot of people think of the PS2 version first, but I could be wrong. But more than anything, I really don't remember the game super well, but I do remember the cover. Like I remember the cover very well. Like every time I see the cover, I know immediately, oh, Legacy of Kain. I don't know. It's gonna be hard to recommend. It's like, could you play like '90s Tomb Raider today, Dory? Like the collection that came out this year. Could you play that?
The original.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't play that.
Yeah, because people forget how puzzle heavy the original games are. Like very, very obscure puzzle focused they are. It's not just like run around and shoot a T-Rex, because there is a T-Rex and tigers and whatever.
Of course, and tigers and bears. Oh my!
Yeah, right. So it's gonna be hard to recommend this game to a new player, but for me, I'm happy. I'm just happy to see old games coming back and remastered.
Yes, I think that's exactly right. Like I think that the best part about this is just digital preservation, right? Like I just think that's the best thing. People can whine and moan about how, oh, we're getting another remaster of an old game that no one's ever played, blah blah blah. You know, which isn't even true, of course. But like, I think it's important for digital preservation, right? Because eventually these games go off storefronts. There are some games that I've seen on lists that are like underappreciated or didn't get sold as much or had like controversy issues or whatever. And you can't get them on storefronts anymore. You can't get them on Steam, can't get them on Good Old Games or anywhere. And so those games are just gone unless you pirate them, right? And so I think this is great just strictly from a digital preservation. And yeah, I mean, like I said, I'll look at reviews, and like the world and characters and lore interests me more than the game itself, just because when my friend would always talk about it, she would always talk about that aspect more than any gameplay or anything like that. So yeah, I had never heard of the games before her. She was the only person I've ever met who was like that into the games or even talked about them. So these are definitely like a cult classic kind of situation. It's not true that nobody played it, but I did not know anybody growing up who played this game. In fact, I didn't even know about the game at all. Maybe I saw a commercial on TV or something, right? But I don't fucking remember. But yeah, I think this is great just for digital preservation, like I said.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. I'm happy to see these old games coming back. We're gonna get Tomba, right? Gex.
Tomba, yeah. I remember Tomba.
Clock
That game ruled when I was a kid.
Clock Tower, the Metal Gear Solid collection that we got. So I'm happy to see all these games coming back, giving people more access to play them. And it's even more amazing. You can play them on like a Steam Deck or a Switch or whatever. So that's awesome. You can play it on the go as well. I mean, you can always get an emulator on your phone too, but it's not the same, I think, as an emulator, like an actual built-in game for hardware. But people can do whatever they want. So yeah, this is good news. I am excited about this. I don't think it's gonna age super well, but I will probably enjoy it just to go back and see how it holds up. All right. So that concludes our news topics. So the rest is about what we're playing and Dungeons of Hinterberg. So let's start with what we're playing. Dory, you start. What have you been playing this week?
It's a short list. God, camp is so draining, and I just don't have time for anything really. So I finished Flintlock, and I've been playing the next game we'll talk about, Dungeons of Hinterberg.
So that's my list is exactly the same. I beat both of them. So we'll just talk about use these as
so let's just talk about Flintlock.
Two impressions.
Let's talk about Flintlock.
Yeah, we'll do 2 impressions.
Yeah. All right, so this is going to be really surprising to, I think, some of our viewers, especially longtime viewers. I really loved Flintlock. I'll get the negative out of the way like really easily and early. The story is nothing. It's not particularly good. I'm not going to say Seb's a little harsher on it than I am. I understand where he's coming from. I thought it was just okay. It kept the story moving. I understood intentions. The only good part of the game, character-wise, is really Enki. Everybody else is kind of bland and just not given enough time to really be a character.
I agree.
And the graphics are kind of like ho-hum. Like they're good. They're decent, but they're nothing. They didn't wow me. The style, in particular, I didn't think was very evocative.
Yeah,
right?
let's start with the story. So just we have a structure.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Flintlock, so let's just go through it.
Yeah, so story-wise, I don't like it as much as you. Not that you like love it, but you know, I mean, I didn't like it at all. Like I thought the characters were bland, and I thought the only person I liked was Enki. Enki. I love his voice. I love his design. Yes. I love foxes too.
Foxes are so cute.
And I really liked his character. I love how he you defeat the boss. How he drains them basically.
Yes,
that was cool. I love his platforming style. His everything about him is awesome, I thought. But I thought the main character, I didn't care for her at all.
That's fair.
I find her
Nora is very bland, and she just doesn't have much motivating her except for guilt.
Yeah.
And that guilt becomes non-existent. I will also towards the end of the game, I won't really say why, but I will also say there's a conflict between Enki and Nor late in the game, Seb, you might remember, because there's a truth revealed. And it kind of just gets brushed aside by a cutscene. Yeah, you noticed that too. Just brushed aside in a cutscene where it's like, oh yeah, they're making amends, they're talking, blah, blah, blah. And then they were just kind of good. It didn't do anything interesting. Like that part, I was like, what? Like you can't just push that. That was a big reveal. It was a big turning point in the story, and you're just like, whatever.
Yeah.
Like that part sucked. I did not like that.
Yeah, I won't say what happened in the end, but the ending was so abrupt. It was just
the ending was not good either. Yeah, I won't say what happened either, but I was definitely one of those endings that's a ending where it's it doesn't really end where you think it's going to, and then when it does, it just feels very inconclusive, very unsatisfying. I mean, I'll say this. I know both Seb and I were not strong on. We're not hot on the Nobody Wants to Die ending, but at least Nobody Wants to Die had an interesting visuals and story to go along with the ending that was abrupt and inconclusive, right? That's like 2 games this month that have had abrupt, inconclusive endings, by the way.
I was going to say that 2 weeks in a row. 2 weeks in a row.
Wait, don't tell me Dungeons does too. Does Dungeons at least have a satisfying ending? Or
yeah, okay, it has a conclusive ending that I
great. We don't need to talk. We're not going to talk about it. I just wanted to.
Yeah.
I just wanted to know that we weren't doing tic-tac-toe. But yeah, it's wild. But yeah, at least with Nobody Wants to Die, I keep wanting to say No World for Tomorrow, which is a Cody and Cambria song. But Nobody Wants to Die, at least with that, it's, like I said, very visually appealing. And, at least the is like more intellectually rigorous. You're like, what just happened? Like, why did it happen? Right? At least you're thinking about it. This, I'm like, okay, whatever. Moving on, uninstall. There's no New Game Plus either. So once you beat the game, that's it. They do give you a heads up that, they make it very obvious too, just by set dressing and stuff, that you're coming up to the end of the game.
Yeah, you're not picking up. Yeah, they put you right before the final boss. So
yes, yeah. So and then I will also say, I think my last complaint about this game too. By the time you're at the end of the game, at least for me and my build, I can't speak to all builds, of course. For my build, the last 2 bosses were a joke. I beat the last, and I'm not a particular, I guess I've beaten certain, I'm really good at, the things that I practice at, like KH2 and KH3 super bosses on critical. I've beaten some of them without healing or without using potions and only healing. And, I think that's, my biggest accomplishments in terms of, hard bosses. But, still, I'm not going to say, I'm some kind of savant or avant-garde person when it comes to, I'm just using random French words at this point. I don't even think avant-garde made sense. But Soufflé Bleu. But anyway, so just the last 2 bosses were easy, is what I'm trying to say. And I'm not some particular Souls professional. I beat the second to last boss in 2 tries, and I only died once because of a stupid mistake. And the last boss, I beat in 1 try, and he had 1 phase. Now, granted, I had no potions left. I had pretty much no abilities left. I was spent. I was completely. I had 1 full health bar, because you can get a second one later in the game, which of course I immediately went for as soon as I noticed it. And so I was pretty spent on resources, but I was at full health. I expected that fight to be a lot tougher, but it wasn't, and it was a bit unsatisfying. I guess there's satisfaction in feeling like you can go toe to toe with gods by the end of the game. But it didn't really feel like I was going toe-to-toe with. It felt like I was Andre the Giant and they were Rey Mysterio, right? It didn't really feel like I was going toe-to-toe. It felt like... Anyway, so I don't know, Seb, how your experience was with the last 2 bosses, but mine was... It was a cakewalk, and it felt like it shouldn't have been.
In terms of the gameplay, at the beginning it was challenging. I was like, okay, is this game kind of hard? As you progress and get more skills and everything, then the game went from I'm not saying it was hard, but it was it wasn't a walk in the park.
Okay.
It was normal.
Yeah.
And you had to be on your toes and concentrate. You couldn't just casually play it. After about halfway through it, when you started unlocking all the magic skills, then I got overpowered, and it was starting to get really, really easy. And I was just killing things left and right.
You can just stun lock enemies with Enki's abilities pretty quick, or not even stun lock, but just do so much damage so quickly with Enki, because if you time your attacks, you get a damage bonus. If you use certain abilities, you can stun them. You get certain. I got a beam that I could just fire from Enki, and it just stuns enemies and pretty much one shots them if I focus all my power on them. This does feel like a Souls game at the beginning, and even somewhat towards the middle. I will say the second boss, the second god I fought, was pretty tough. I died to him, I think, 10 times, or something like that. Maybe a little less than 10 times. The machine one that had the 1-hit kill. But other than that, that was the pinnacle of the difficulty. After that, everything was on a downward slope.
It's Souls like God. It reminded me more of God of War 2018 or Ragnarok. It had the red, the red circle pops up.
Yes,
you can't. You have to
for sure.
Either you have to stun them or you have to dodge. And
Yes.
it wasn't Souls like you die in like 3 hits. I mean, I guess you could do, but
Right.
it feels like God of War, I guess, like a
Yeah.
worse version of God of War.
Yes, definitely. As much as I like this game, I would definitely agree with that. Not as good as God of War for sure. The reason I love this game so much, despite some of the issues I've talked about, we talk a lot about gameplay is king, and for me, I just really fell in love with the gameplay. I really enjoyed the combat. I really felt like the parrying system felt fair once you get the hang of it. Of course, it's an adjustment, but I think it is fair once you get into it. I thought the dodging was really good. So every now and then the camera would get a little frantic, and also like there weren't really audio or visual cues warning you of enemies attacking from the side or behind. But I talked about that last time. That never really changed, but it also didn't really affect me that badly either.
Yeah.
You get ways of dealing with crowds and grenades and Enki's abilities and weapons. By the end, I was using, I don't know if you were using this weapon, but I was using the hammer, and I was also using Nor's axe. So I was using the original axe and the judge's hammer. I did a lot of the side quests. I think I did all of them. None of them are particularly amazing. I think the only interesting one was the one with the brother and sister that helps you unlock grenade upgrades. And even that had a very abrupt ending where Enki and Nor made a moral decision, and they were like, let's just do this. And then they were like, yep, that makes sense. And then they moved on, and it was never addressed and never, it was like, what? That's like and that felt wrong to me too. I was like, y'all are going to tell that character like what happened? Like, that's messed up.
I think this game is definition of gameplay is king, because the gameplay carries this game, because I just don't care about the character setting story that much. And I mean, gameplay is more important than anything else, so that doesn't bother me too much. But gameplay was good. I liked it. Obviously, like I said, it's not God of War, but it's a quality gameplay. Is quality. I think. I feel like it plays well. I feel like the enemy variety is pretty good. Like I kept you on your toes. It give you a lot of weapons and different builds to use, different magic. The skill tree was pretty good, I thought.
I agree.
Because it required a lot of points to unlock the whole thing, so people are gonna have different play styles, I think. But for the most part, it was good. I had like 7 crashes. Now I don't know. I got. I
had a few. I had a few myself.
Yeah.
And sometimes it would be for the strangest reason. Like I think wait, adjust my shade here.
For me, it was almost always the menu. Like anytime I switching tabs, it would crash in the menu. I don't know why.
Oh.
I was playing on my to be clear, I was playing on my laptop. No, my laptop's like a 4070, so it's not like some low end laptop. It's a medium, upper end, I guess. And it played mostly well, and the frame rate was good. I didn't have any frame drops that much, really.
Yeah.
But the crashes, I had like 7 or 8 crashes.
I had like 5 crashes, maybe. I don't understand what was happening. One time, like the ground was shaking or something because like an enemy or something in the distance happened, or I don't even know. And then just suddenly, game just plop. I don't really understand what was going on there. But yeah, I have a pretty middle of the road gaming PC. I'm definitely not high end, but I wouldn't call it low end either. I spent like $700, $800 on it. It runs pretty well. The game, I mean, Flintlock ran pretty well. I mean, generally speaking?
Were you on like medium settings, high end settings?
Yeah, I was on medium settings. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So nothing wild, nothing that should have been causing crashes. In other words, but yeah, other than that, I mean, honestly, frame rate was never an issue for me. I thought the platforming was really fun for the most part. Mm-hmm. It doesn't feel as finicky as the next game we'll talk about. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was a lot of fun to go through those Enki. I'm going to just call them Enki portals, but those little purple Enki portals that you can just go around. I heard some reviewers saying that they were finicky and sometimes you were worried about ledge grabbing. I didn't have that experience for the most part. I did have a little bit of trouble with ledge grabbing once or twice, just because Nora can be very particular about where on the platform she wants to grab. But I mean, that was a very minor thing, and it didn't happen very often.
It was.
I thought the end. Sorry. Go ahead.
It was a minor thing for me as well. Like there was some parts where she wouldn't grab the ledge, but that was only like 2 times. My whole.
Yeah, exactly. I will also say enemy design in this game is really great. Very varied. At least in my experience. I thought there was a good mix of enemies. It helps that there's only 3 areas, 3 major areas. It did feel like I liked the size of everything. It never felt like I was walking too much, or like a hamlet wasn't that far away. I freed all the hamlets, by the way, and I got all of Enki's feathers. So I really put some time in this. I think I put like 15, 16 hours or something like that. I put a good amount of time. I wasn't going to platinum it. I was not that invested in it. But I was invested in it enough to play 11 hours and 37 minutes according to Game Pass. So not 15. But yeah, that's that. At least an hour or 2 of that was doing side quests, getting Enki's feathers so that I could level him up. Doing little bonus things because I was invested. Like Seb said, I'm not invested necessarily in the characters of the world, but I'm invested in the gameplay, and I want Nor to be better at fighting, not because I really care about Nor, but because I care about this combat system, and it's really, for me, very satisfying. Yeah. I liked it more than Another Crab's Treasure, just because I enjoyed the combat more, although I will say Another Crab's Treasure has much better lore and like story and characters and stuff like that, like much better, all of that, but gameplay matters more to me in these kind of games. If these were narrative-driven games, that would obviously put Another Crab's Treasure over it.
I cared more about the crab, him getting his shell back, than her, than her
avenging her fallen comrades. And it's so fucking funny, but it's true. I completely agree with that. Like, that's so funny, but it's true. I was so engrossed in him getting his shell back, and I wanted him to do it, and I was like, that motherfucking shark, like, give me my goddamn shell. I was pissed for him, right? The fucking hermit crab, like, he has nowhere else to go.
Just mind his business, chilling, like, leave him
right. Just don't tread on me, like, living his life. You know what I mean? But like, anyway, so yeah, it was. I don't know. I enjoyed a lot of what. I was just looking. At this game at first as kind of an opportunity to, experience another Dark Souls sort of light game or like, and I really enjoyed what I got. I think if I had put it on Punishing or whatever it was called, I definitely think you would probably get closer to a Dark Souls game. Even on normal, I felt myself challenged early to mid game.
The thing is, Dark Souls can be easy too, like because there's so many different play styles. You know what I mean? Like Sekiro is really hard because you only have one play style, parrying, right? But Dark Souls, you could tackle it in like 100 different ways. You know what I mean? You can have a magic build, you can have a dexterity build. This like you have a shield build and things like that. And you can over level and things like that. So I think you could play a Souls game. I don't know if I could recommend like Bloodborne or like Sekiro for you, but if you can play this game, you can play like the majority of the Souls games. They're more difficult by reputation, at least in my opinion. I mean, they're hard and you die a lot, but they're not like as frustrating as some people can make it out to be, I guess. But it's so subjective, right? So this game is not a walk in the park, but it's not Sekiro, but it's a relative challenge, at least at first, and then it gets really easy. Overall, the gameplay is good. The story, I think the story and the characters and all that are just, I don't really care. There's just the story was kind of generic, and the gods were like whatever. I was not invested in the story at all. But the gameplay and the platforming especially is really fun. Flying through the portals, I really enjoy unlocking the shortcuts, and it's very accessible. Like getting the shortcuts. So it's really easy to travel. The fast travel is really good. Getting around the map is very good. I really enjoy it. I also enjoy the fact that like if I am not like well geared or I don't have enough health items for that area, I can just run away from the enemies, and it's pretty easy to run by enemies. You don't have to fight everything you see on the screen. And it's also like a Souls game in the sense that if you die, you lose your souls and you have to go collect them again. So it's Souls-like in that way. But overall, it's not as hard as like a typical Souls game, like a Dark Souls, but it is challenging, and it is really fun. I recommend it just by the gameplay. It's on Game Pass. I don't know how much it is on Steam. I think it's like $30. 35, 40, something around that. It's like 30 to 40. Which, I mean, this is like a $25 game. If I had to put value on it, I would wait for a sale. I would not buy this day one. I got it on a website for cheaper. So I didn't mind paying. I enjoyed it. I was worth the money. I put 14 hours into it. Doing
Nice.
half the side content. I'm still working through it. I'm playing it here and there, so I'm still playing it even after beating it.
Right.
I like the gameplay. I might
Yeah.
100% all the achievements on Steam. I don't know yet. I'm like half through the achievements, so maybe. I don't know. But yeah. So I recommend it. Dory is higher on it. I think Dory will give it an 8 out of 10.
Yes, I would give it. I would give it an 8 out of 10. It's on my top ten list. Actually, somewhat high. I presume towards the end of the year it will be pushed back a little bit by better games. But yeah, the gameplay just wowed me. Not wowed me, but I enjoyed it so much.
It's good.
And I liked it so much that for me it's like it's better than some of the other games this year that maybe had a better story or better characters, but this one had such good I didn't expect. I mean, after all the reviews I saw, there weren't many 8 out of 10s. There was like a couple. I think Gaming Bolt gave them an 8 out of 10. IGN did a 7, of course they did. A couple other places did 7s. So I didn't expect to like it as much as I did, but I really did. On like a 5 scale with decimals, I'd probably give it like a 4.25. Like I thought it was really great overall. But there are some definite issues with the characters and the story and some crashes and stuff. But for the most part, it ran great and it played great. I had a really good time.
Yeah.
I recommend playing this on Game Pass. I wouldn't buy it full price, but I would play it on Game Pass for sure if owning your games isn't important to you. Like, it's not super important to me. It's nice, but it's not what particularly drives me to have games. So I recommend picking up on Game Pass if that's your thing.
Yeah, for people to do buy it, I recommend it on sale. Like 20 to $25 is a good price for it. I think it's worth it for that. For me, it's a 7.5 out of 10, maybe a 7. I think the gameplay is strong enough. I think the gameplay really carries it. I think if you like the game, most people are gonna like the gameplay enough to enjoy the game. I'm sure other people are gonna enjoy the story and the characters more than Dory and I. But overall, I think the gameplay is gonna appeal to a lot of people, and I think people are gonna enjoy it. So it's 7. I would say 7.5 out of 10 for me, which is a good score. I think it's a good game. I don't think it's a great game. I think it has a lot of flaws, but it's not in my top 10 or anything. But it's definitely a game I enjoyed playing overall. So I think that's that for the both of us. So let's move on to Dungeons of Hinterberg. All right, so the Dungeons of Hinterberg is if it's a dungeon crawler, but not in the sense like Diablo, but you go through dungeons like Zelda. You play as Louisa, who visits a city, Burnout City. She's from. I think she's from that city. She's from a city, basically, and she goes to like a town, like a picturesque town, right? And it's called of Hinterberg, which is like an Austrian village, and it's like a tourist destination for people who like to fight monsters and look at all the beautiful picturesque scenes and
classic things that they do in Austria, by the way.
Yeah. So it's like it's not like a magical world or anything. It's legitimately just Austria, but like with magic portals takes them to dungeons and monsters running around. All right. So basically, you play as Louisa and you go to different dungeons. Like it's like 20 or it's about over 20, a little like about 20. And you do different style of gameplay in the dungeons. Like there's some that have like a minecart puzzles. There's one of them is like it becomes a 2D scroller. There's one of them becomes like an on rail slot, like kind of like a Sonic or Ratchet and Clank kind of thing. It's all different. It mixes up the gameplay pretty well, I think, and it follows a calendar system like Persona, where like you have morning, afternoon, and night. Or I think it's morning,
you have evening,
and then night. And then night, yeah.
Yeah.
So the morning is usually like a dialogue section where you just talk to someone at a cafe or whatever, and they introduce themselves.
Right, Alex usually.
Yeah, or Alex, and then the second part is usually when you go to the dungeon, the map, the four sections that you can go to. There's 4 different sections. One of them is like a grassland area. The second one is like a tree fall looking area. Third one is winter, and the fourth one's like a swampy area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Spoilers, Seb. God.
Oh, I think you were there by now. I think you were there by now.
No, I'm not. I actually no. I did unlock the area. I haven't gone to it yet because I'm trying to go numerically through it. I'm at level 4, I think, for dungeons. But anyway, yeah, continue.
So you do the dungeons, and every time you do it, you do something. It changes time, like Persona. Like once you do something, it changes to the next event. It will always tell you if you do this, you're gonna use the time. All right, so in the morning you do talk to somebody. The afternoon you go to the map and you do whatever you want. You might either you go to a relaxing point, you go to a dungeon, or you do an activity. It will move time forward, and then you come back in the evening to the town, and that's when the town where you walk around and talk to whatever character you want, buy whatever you want, things like that. And then finally at night is when you either have the option of like Persona, where you have the option of like watching TV, reading a book, or going to bed. If you read the book or watch TV, you lose health, and you're gonna have less health the next day. So there's a risk to doing that.
I've never done that once. Yeah.
So why you could or should do that is that every activity you do in this game gives you a certain amount of points for something. So if you do something that's fun, you're gonna have points towards the category that's about fun, and there's ones about relaxation. So there's things like that, and you have to have a certain amount of points to do certain side missions or side quests with characters to unlock dialogue with them. There's certain characters will be like you need to have this many points to talk to them and to do the event. So basically it's a cozy game that allows you to pick and choose how you want to play it. You don't have to. It's not just dungeons. It wants you. It encourages you. It kind of makes you do different things. Like just enjoy the music, the scenery, relax, hang out with somebody, and then do dungeons here and there. Now, the gameplay itself is pretty fun. It's not anything incredible. But you get 2 skills that are unique for each area that like do certain platforming, and you get other skills that in combat focused skills to use, and you can upgrade and all that. But for the most part, the gameplay is mainly just light attack and heavy attack. Like that's all you really do in this game is light attack, heavy attack, light attack,
right,
heavy attack.
And some magic attacks. Plus, there's some conduits. They're conduits where you can do like a special attack, right. And they're on recharge. It really feels like a PS2 game kind of in that way.
Yeah.
Where it feels like you have like a slew of like normal attacks, and then you have like these special attacks. I don't know why I said PS2 game, but like those old school like hack and slash games, I guess is what I'm thinking of. Seb, did you want to say anything, or I'll say a few things if not?
Yeah, I'll just let me just finish, and then
sure,
you can talk about it. And then the dungeons are like Zelda. They're like they're very similar to old school Zelda, even new Zelda, where it's like a lot of puzzles, different. I think they're pretty creative. I will say it does get redundant after a while. You kind of get tired of puzzles. Yep. I burned me out. It started to burn me out like near the halfway point. I was kind of like, I'm not really in the mood for this. So I had to put it down at sometimes and move on to another game just because I just couldn't. I got burned out from puzzles, but most of the puzzles are good. I thought they were creative enough. I didn't think they were overly complicated either. I was able to figure out most of them pretty good. There was a couple I had to look up because I was like, how would I ever think of this?
Yes.
But for the most part, they were pretty straightforward, and I liked them. I like to use my brain for them. But the dungeons are kind of besides the puzzles, they're not anything mind blowing. Like there's only a few have a boss battle. Like 4 of them really have like a major boss. Okay. But most of them are just kind of like the difficulty. See, the thing is, it will say like level 8 or level 7 or level 6 or 5 for dungeons.
Right.
So even if you go to a dungeon like under leveled, like I feel like you could do it because there's not a lot of combat. It's mostly like puzzle solving. So,
right. There's combat every now and then. To be clear, Seb's beaten the game. I've put about 6.5 hours. I've beaten I want to say 10 or 11 dungeons, so about half the dungeons. Do you have to beat every single dungeon to finish the game or no? I figure not. No. Okay.
I don't think so. I mean, it's hard to say because I beat the game last. Like that was my last achievement.
Okay, sure.
So I couldn't tell you, but
But yeah. So I'm like, I think this is kind of the reverse situation. Not that Seb like adores this game or whatever, but I think Seb's like, this is a matter of degrees, but like slightly higher on this game than I am. I'm enjoying myself, but I can't say I'm like glued to it. I've definitely had moments where I'm like, but I could be playing Dragon Age Origins instead of playing this.
I felt that at times, like I said. Like there's times where I get burned out from just puzzles.
For sure. And I'm not a puzzle person. I love those old school Zelda games, Majora's Mask or Twilight Princess is probably even considered old school at this point, right? To some extent.
Yes. It's been a long time ago.
Yes. Yeah, Jesus Christ. But I'm in denial. But anyway, so and I love those games. So I don't mind a little bit of puzzles here and there, but I just don't care enough about the characters, the scenic spots. To me, this is not called scenic spots of Hinterberg. It's called Dungeons of Hinterberg.
I'm with you on that.
I don't feel any personal investment in talking with the characters, and a lot of them are assholes, right? There's some, not a lot of them, but there are a few of them, like the ones that are like the ones like this really edgy, like moody guy who's like dresses in all black. A couple of them are like influencers, another is like this hipster who writes for an indie magazine who wants you to do his job for him. Like, I don't want to talk to these guys, and I have other options, right? I have the girl who works at the ice cream shop who's very nice and does the touristy stuff. I have Alex, who's awesome. I have the really nerdy professor, who I think is a cool guy. I got Aunt Hannah, who runs the magic enchantment shop. Those are 4 cool people, decently cool people. I'm not saying they're amazing characters, but they're cool people with like interests and motivations and whatever. One other thing that bothers me about this game, and Seb and I had a whole discussion about it, and I'll only talk about it very briefly. I know it's an indie game, but the character models sometimes really bothered me. It's not universal, but some of the characters, especially the professor, just looks like a big blob that happens to have facial features on top of it. Yeah. It doesn't look good. By contrast, the graphics or the like atmosphere or the vibe or whatever you want to say is immaculate. Like the music is on point. The environment, that's what I'm trying to say, is like beautiful. Especially in the fall world that you have, kind of gave me Spyro Ripto's Rage vibes from one of the home worlds. There's a deep cut. And then like the snow world is gorgeous, but unfortunately, I think Seb had this experience too. The frame rate just can't handle the snowboarding, even though, and that upsets me so much because I love the snowboarding. It's actually really surprisingly responsive. It's one of my favorite parts of the game. I kind of just wish that they had made a snowboarding game because to me, it feels like the best part of the game. Not that the combat's bad. The combat's pretty good and the puzzles are good for the most part. I've only had to look up a couple of them and I'm not very good at puzzles. That kind of thinking is tricky for me sometimes, abstract thinking. But overall, I mean, this is a pretty good game. I'm close to saying it's a great game, but I'm not quite convinced of that yet. I think once I get through the second half, I'll make a decision one way or the other if it's going on my top 10 or not. But I do like it. It's a good game for sure. Another game you can get on Game Pass. I think the music's lovely. I think the story of Louisa trying to get away from burnout is very relatable. I don't know how, solving that by doing puzzles, tedious puzzles, and killing monsters is necessarily the best available opportunity. Perhaps she should have tried therapy, but given how expensive therapy is under our current system, maybe this is the best option for her. There's the storyline, but I can't say I'm particularly moved by it. I'm not offended by it either, but it's just kind of there. Sometimes the game has jokes and I just don't understand it. Maybe that's because they're from Austria and it's a different culture, but like there's a joke about the statue and what gets unveiled during the Onion Festival, which I thought was weird that there's an Onion Festival, but whatever. I think it's some sort of commentary on just like Austrian culture or something. But anyway, the statue itself was supposed to be funny. I guess it's garish, but I don't really get the joke that they unveil at the Onion Festival. Overall, I like the game. The puzzles, I agree with Seb, can get a little tedious, but the combat's really fun. At this point, I have like the second best sword in the game, and I'm only halfway through, so it doesn't take a lot for you to to get a lot of Hinterbucks. One of the ways, besides just going into dungeons where you often get a lot of money, obviously, is also giving it to the Monster Fan Club, where you give them a lot of monster parts, and they will give you Hinterbucks. I'm almost up to 200 monster parts, and then they'll give me 10,000. So pretty good. I'm pretty close to getting the best sword in the game, which I believe is a bunny blade. So that rules. The game's good. It's not. It doesn't I'm not in love with it like I am with like I was with Flintlock, but I am enjoying myself. But there are definitely times where I look over my shoulder and I reach out to Dragon Age Origins, and I'm like, soon. So that's how I'm feeling about this game. It's not a glowing recommendation, but it is a recommendation. It's a good game, and you should give it a shot, especially if you like dungeon crawlers. Again, like Seb said, not Diablo, but like classic Zelda dungeon crawlers with a little bit of puzzles, a little bit of combat. The combat's honestly probably the best part about it. But yeah.
Yeah, I agree with all your criticisms. The story didn't click with me the first half. Once you started piecing the story together, like by talking all the characters and how they're affected by the corporation and all that, and the pollution and monsters and tourism. It has a good commentary about tourism and corporations. It's a very anti-corporate message, and you find out who the main villain is and the mystery, and it's pretty obvious who the villain is. Even Dory could probably figure it out pretty easily. The villain's pretty obvious who it is, but it has like a nice corporate message there. I like how we'll talk about they're polluting the water by dumping it in, or like someone's shop is getting closed down by the corporation. I like that aspect of it, but for the most part, I did not care for the side characters. I did not care for the dialogue that much. I as a millennial myself, as Dory's a millennial as well, we're not all that negative and cynical all the time. Like it's just kind of tiring. I feel like they think all millennials are just like these hipster people who have like just miserable all the time and always like there's more to it. Like I just feel like it's simple.
Yeah, like who fucking makes these hipster jokes anyway? No one even uses the term hipsters anymore. Like I don't know. I made a hipster joke in a GIF form just as like a meta joke, right? Because nobody fucking says hipsters anymore.
It's just like it's like overdone now. I feel like everybody has the same haircut, the same like design. It's kind of it's time to move away from this typical of like especially in indie games. They have the same character. I swear, the same type of character in every game, and it's starting to get old. And then the problem is this game focuses so much on dialogue and hanging out with people. So if that doesn't click, it's not gonna stick with somebody, right? Like, because the dungeons are good, and I think the gameplay is good, but because a lot of the game is just talking to people. That like if they're not interesting, it doesn't really work. Like one of the things about Persona that works so great is the characters are all awesome, and you get attached to all of them. Like people to this day debate like love interest, like who does he really love? Like who's his real girlfriend? This character or this character? Where this game, it's like I don't care for most of the characters. Like I don't say there's no characters I don't for the most part, like I'm just like I got to the point where I'm like I kind of want to just fast forward through the dialogue. I just don't care. I just want to do the dungeons. So
it's funny too. You say that you want to fast forward through it because you can actually fast forward through the through the cutscenes, and I have done that, especially when you go to the skill orb thing. Like they do the same animation every time. I felt like I was back in what the fuck is that game from Bethesda that came out a couple years ago? The one that everyone thought was going to be a bit. Why am I blanking on this fucking name? Are you kidding me? The huge game that came out from Bethesda like a year ago or something. Star whatever. What? Starfield. Thank you.
How do you blame on Starfield?
I don't know. Anyway, it's right. It's like right in Starfield where you fucking get when you get a power and it's the same fucking animation every time. Except at least with this one, you can fast forward. So anyway, that was my commentary.
It's like you can do the same thing in Persona. It copies. I'm not saying copy, but it does Personas. Persona you can fast forward as well. Yeah, the story didn't really click with me. I got better with them when the mystery started appealing and the themes and all that, like halfway through it. But for the most part, it just didn't click with me. Other people seem to like it more than I did. It's just not for me. That soured the game a bit for me. The frame rate, as Dory mentioned, was bad in the snow place. Like I had like 90 frames or 100 frames per second, and then it dropped like 15 to 10. And the snowboarding was so cool. That's such a cool area. Like this, the snow place was the best looking area, I think. And it was so colorful. It really popped, and I couldn't enjoy it because the frame rate was so bad. It was unplayable, really unplayable. Um, because it wants you to do precise snowboarding between like flags, and you couldn't do it because the frame rate was so choppy. I powered through it. The dungeons themselves didn't have that, but it was just the hub world for whatever reason just couldn't handle it. But the frame rate wasn't like a big issue in most of the game. It was just that one area for whatever reason. The As Dory mentioned, the big thing about this game is it's like it feels like a indie game. It feels like a lower budget game. It could use more polish, but obviously it's probably a smaller dev team. So it's understandable. I think the character models I agree as well with Dory is they're not that great, especially the background characters. Like you'd be talking to a character in a restaurant or a hotel. And if you look at the background characters, or they look like they're so poorly designed. They're like circles with like faces on them. They were just so blah. The character faces I were not that great, and everything. There's no voice acting in this game. Everything's a dialogue box. Now that doesn't really bother me, but like it would have been nice to have some voice acting, I guess. Because you read so many text messages, text. Now I grew up in the '90s, so I'm used to that too. But it's kind of nice to have that. I prefer voice acting today. Even Persona has a ton of voice acting with the text. So, but that's not. I wouldn't use that as a criticism. I was just saying I would prefer voice acting. So not to go in a circle. So overall, the gameplay to me is not like, amazing, but it's pretty good. Like it's good. Dungeons are fun. Puzzle solving is for the most part good. The gameplay carries this game like Flintlock. I think the gameplay carries the game. I think the visuals, as Dory mentioned, is amazing. The cell shaded background, like it really colorful, really pops. It really looks nice. I guess the main selling point for this game, I remember when it was revealed at the Xbox showcase, was like, oh wow, that looks great. The grinding on the rails and seeing a planet in the background and things like that. They did a great job with that. The character models are not strong, but the environment looks good. So overall, it's not my top 10 games. It's gonna be in one of my favorite indie games probably, but it's even then it's probably not my favorite indie game either. I would recommend it on Game Pass. I recommend it on sale. I would not pay full price for it. But I think it's worth trying out. It's not gonna click with everybody. I think the puzzles are gonna be a turnoff for a lot of people. This is not like a action heavy game. This is strongly I don't want to say a dating sim, but it's a conversational sim. Best way I can put it. It's a dialogue sim.
Yeah.
Where you do occasional dungeons where you do mainly square triangle with some abilities here and there.
Right.
And puzzle solving. And so I would have preferred if this game focused more on the dungeon aspect of it and it had like a cool storyline that tied into all the dungeons. And to be clear, there's 25 dungeons, not 20. There's 25. So I would have preferred a more like story focused game in terms of like the dungeons, not like dialogue with characters and hanging out with them. That didn't click with me, but other people that might like that. I'm just tired of like this, like I said, the millennial indie focus. Like it just feels dated at this point. It just feels like we've done this 100 times. So I'm like somewhere between a 7.5 and an 8. I'll just go with an 8. Like reviews are 82, I think, on Metacritic. I'm like a 7.8, I guess. You know, I'm somewhere between
too much water.
Yeah. I liked it a lot more at first, but then as I played more and more, I played let's say 25 hours. To get all the achievements, it took me 25 hours. By like this midway point, I was kind of ready to move on. So like it started losing its higher grade with me. So at first I thought it was an 8, but now I'm like more like in the 7s, 7.7, 7.8 kind of thing. Not like that. It's still good. It's still a good game. I recommend it. Just know what you're getting into. This is not going to be for everybody. This is very much so an indie game. First and foremost, this is not a dating sim. This is a conversational sim, Zelda-like game, Basically, it's Persona mixed with Zelda. That's the best way to describe it. Zelda mixed with Persona. So I think it's gonna be a hidden gem for a lot of people. I think I think a lot of people are not gonna check it out. They're gonna miss out on it. It's like, oh, typical.
I feel like it's going to be similar to like Sable. I didn't play Sable, but it's got that cell shaded. It's got that indie feel. It's going to be something that some people miss out on.
It's gonna be underrated.
This game isn't completely for me, but there are a lot of aspects of it I like and appreciate.
Yeah, it's gonna be an underrated game for the year. It's nothing incredible. It's not gonna be my top 10, but it's underrated.
Yeah,
gem. I'll put it that way. Good game. I think it's a good game, and I recommend it. Just wait for a sale or go use it get it on Game Pass.
Or Game Pass. Yep, I agree with everything Seb just said. I'm more at like a 7.5 or something like that, or 3.75 or whatever random numbers we can put together. It's pretty good. I wouldn't say it's great, but it's doing enough that I'm just chugging along and I'm enjoying myself. But there are better games awaiting me, and I think I'd rather be playing them.
Yes, I agree. And I also keep in mind, some people have complained about the visuals bothering their eyes and bothering, like, making them dizzy. It bothered me. I got some eye strain when I was playing on my XR glasses and things like that. This game does have some eye strain potentially, and some people said they got nauseous a little bit. And I feel like there's a lot of, like, pop-ins, not pop-ins, but there's, like, when you're moving around, like, a lot of things kind of peer in, and there's like there's so much color thrown at you. It's a very bright game. I can see that bothering some people, but I don't know if that's a major thing with some people. I haven't really seen that, but
it hasn't affected me. But
I've seen it. I've seen it here and there though, so I don't know how widespread that is. But just something to keep in mind. But I agree with Dory. It's a good game. I recommend it, but it's not my kind of game. So it's even amazing I put 25 hours into it. But so there you go with that.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like 25 hours, but I guess I was playing it here and there. Also, it runs very, 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 very well on the Steam Deck. It's a perfect Steam Deck game. So
nice.
All right, so that's our show. Thanks for joining us. I have no idea what we're talking about next week. Of course, like always, we'll see what news comes out. The only game that appeals to me next week is the Star Wars Bounty Hunter remaster. Same,
yeah.
But other than that, it's like $20, I think. Other than that, I don't think there's really no game impressions. So probably next week we're gonna talk about what we're playing, and this next week is my last free week of summer. Then I have preschool, and then school starts. So next week is my.
I had no idea you were so young, Seb. Yes, preschool, wow.
Yeah. I have preschool is like a week of just meetings and setting up the class and things like that.
Yeah,
they make me do trainings, and it's annoying, but so it won't affect the podcast or anything. It's just it's my last week to really do something, to play something big or whatever. I think I might play Dragon Age Origins again. It's been a while.
Yeah. Should. It's so good, dude. I was absolutely loving it. I can't wait to get back to it. That'll probably be what I've been playing for next year.
Next
week. Sorry, next year. I know I'll be playing it a while, but I don't think we'll be playing that long. But yeah, I think I'll be beating Hinterberg probably in the next few days. I'm cruising through it. I'm not doing the side stuff. The only thing that moves me is Hannah's side quest, where she's like, we talked about it before. She's getting her stuff's getting taken over and stuff. So that's like, for me, I'm fairly anti-corporate or critical of corporations at least. So like that appeals to me. And actually, it's funny because Hannah's like, "Oh no, they're running me out of business," and I just like spent like 30,000 Hinterbucks or something on this big sword, and I was like, "Wow, that really sucks, Hannah." Like, I felt so bad. I forgot they were douchebags, but like I have nowhere else to give money. It's like a Walmart situation, right? I have nowhere else to give fucking money. And she doesn't sell swords or armor, only they do. So I was like, "Wow, Hannah gives money. That sucks. Gives money. Let me help you." Gives money to the Gears and more. Yeah. So anyway, very funny narrative moment for me.
So with that said, even though next week is a dry week for games, August is loaded.
Yes.
So that first week of August is only dry. After that,
yes. And at this point, I will also say on the record, so people can put me on blast, I am fairly committed to getting Black Myth Wukong because I think the game looks so good. I feel like I'm really not just FOMO. Also, it's near my birthday. I'm just gonna have someone buy it for me, and if I don't like it, whatever, right? Like I didn't pay for it, so like that's my cheat code there. I think. I think I'm gonna at least, yeah.
I was gonna say, I mean, we'll probably get a demo, but at some point. But
yeah.
I would also
say. Oh
say,
yeah, that's right. I hope we do get a demo. I'd love that.
I would also say if you were buying it, I would just say get it on Steam, play it for like 2 hours. You don't know if it clicks with you by then, and you can always refund it. So
yeah, I don't even know how good the PlayStation refund policy is. I've never refunded
no. PlayStation has horrendous refund policy.
Okay, good to know.
Once you download it, that's it.
Okay, good to know.
They will not once you download.
I hope Wukong runs good on my PC then, because that's what I need to know. I need to know the minimum specs and recommended specs.
Have they shown?
Because that's why I didn't play. That's why I didn't play Nobody Wants to Die on my PC, because I had it on PlayStation and it ran really well.
Yeah, but your PC is stronger than the PS5, no? So
maybe I don't know. It might be.
Okay, we can talk about it after the episode. But yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Dory, thanks for joining me. Another good episode.
Yeah.
And have a great night.
Yeah. We'll see Jango Fett next week, maybe, if it gets good reviews.
Peace.